Welcome, and welcome back, everybody, to the OK Grognard Show. It is Monday, November 15th, 2021, 10 a.m. Central, in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. We started up a little series, I guess you'd call it, last week on the Advanced Dungeon Masters Guide, first edition, section on Artifacts and Relics. So we're going to do a part 2 today. And, it's a pretty big section. It's a pretty healthy section. We read through the preliminary intro material on that section, which was in itself meaty enough after some other announcements were made at the beginning of last episode to fill it out. So the individual entries for the various artifacts and relics were coming up and where we left off. And there are quite a few of them. And there's probably quite a bit to discuss extemporaneously about each one. So I don't know that part 2 is going to be enough. Hey, George, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for stopping in the chat there, saying hello. Appreciate it. But let's dive in, and we'll just go through this entry by entry and see where it takes us. Maybe there'll be a part 3, maybe a part 4, part 20. I don't know. I speak so slowly, and I never have much to say. Anyway, Acts of the Dwarvish Lords is the first entry. So we'll look at that and see where we go. Legend relates that the greatest dwarf who ever lived, the first dwarven king, forged this weapon in volcanic fires with the aid of a patron god. It passed from dwarven monarch to dwarven monarch until it was lost in the invoked devastation centuries gone. Got a little outside noise there, just ignore that. Rumors persist of the appearance of the axe from time to time in various places, but it supposedly bears a curse. The blade of the axe is equal to a sword of sharpness, and it is backed by a head equal to a +3 hammer. The handle extends or contracts upon command to equal a battle or hand axe for throwing. And the axe will return 30 feet to its thrower. The possessor has dwarven abilities of infravision, trap detection, etc., double abilities if a dwarf. The possessor's lifespan is 50% longer than normal, but he or she becomes more and more dwarf-like with time, until eventually he or she exactly resembles one. The dwarf has the following additional powers/effects, and this is where the DM gets to include a number of first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth level artifact and relic abilities. I think what I'd like to do, here, let me pop that off for a second. I think what I'd like to do is just kind of skim through the abilities a bit now, because I think that could help create some context for the power of these things. There are 4 or 5 pages of actual individual specific items, artifacts or relics, but those fill in the blank spots. You can pick and choose. You can just make some stuff up and add them in. You can just have it be what it was in that description and add no additional powers if you want. Obviously, with an item such as this to add any powers that mimic abilities that are given to the species uh, in the rules itself. If you were to say Power 1 is infravision or something, there's no point to that, right? You're already getting that from the from the item. So to have a look here, Artifacts and Relics powers / effects tables. Number 1, level 1, let's say. Everything's levels in D&D, right? Minor benign abilities, major benign abilities, minor malevolent effects, major malevolent effects, prime powers, and side effects. So they're all pretty cool, and they juxtapose one another nicely. If you were to just do 1 and 2 and 5, that's all upside stuff. And 3, 4, and 6 are kind of downside stuff. So if you want it to have that sort of artifacts are a blessing and a curse nature, then you definitely want to include some from all. But if you're only going to pick a few here and there, and George says the power set selected will really impact the weapon's overall power. Indeed, that's true. And I would suggest, for the sake of legend, if you're going to cut some out, cut them out in pairs. Minor benign and major malevolent, or minor malevolent, 1 and 3. If you're going to cut one out, cut the other out. 2 and 4, major benign and major malevolent. Cut those out together if you're going to cut anything from one or the other. Prime powers, it's already got some powers. If you're cutting all the other stuff, I don't know if you want to leave prime powers in. Maybe one. Side effects, if you're not adding any of this stuff, you can leave off side effects too. You've already got one built into the description in how it changes the demeanor, the character, the nature, the physicality of the wielder. So if you cut out all the other stuff, I wouldn't add any more side effects. That's maybe adding insult to injury. We could read down some of these. Minor benign powers. Add 1 point. Add 1 point to the possessor's major attribute. And you notice here, these are just by letter and then double letter. Oops. Oh, yeah. You know what I need to do? 1 second. I got to get this on the right scrolling mechanism. Otherwise we don't get what we want here. Let's see. All right. Okay, so we go through single letters and then double letters up to X. XX, that is. Which means we've got 26 plus 24, we've got 50. So we could just randomly roll percentage dice and knock it in half. Oops, we got ourselves a spammer here, huh? Sorry, I'm gonna deal with a little chat room spammerooski here. A little block and ban action there. There we go. Definitely a spam bot. Lots of fun. They talking about how to gain followers on Twitch. And I'm sure that some of the abilities can increase the number of followers you have with Artifacts and Relics. Nice segue, Mark. Way to tie it all together. Anyway, you can see the list here is quite long. You got 50 in each. You can roll percentage dice, cut it in half if you wanted to do it randomly. You may find that looking down the list for each section here, something springs out as being particularly good for either that particular item or for your own campaign. There may be situations in the campaign that have you thinking that one particular ability or another is worth adding in. Um, in particular, something which could be suggested. A lot of people like to do everything sort of randomly, but if you're not going to do it randomly for the sake of the setting or for the item itself's flavor, you may be interested in just shoring up a few holes in the group's demeanor, overall abilities. Um, let's say you're running shorthanded with just 2 or 3 players and nobody's playing a cleric, a healer of any kind, and add Cure Light Wounds in. Let that be something. And then maybe add a line into the lore of that paragraph, that paragraph for the description of the item that includes something about healing. Um, is it cheating? Is it coddling your players to do something like that? I don't know. If you feel it is, then yeah, don't do it because you'll never feel right about it. But at the end of the day, just playing the game's a conceit unto itself. So at what point is we never get to the full end of the range between sandbox and narrative storytelling type games, right? Because you can never be all the way to one side or the other. There's always some mix of both. Usually you fall somewhere in the middle, or a lot of games do, and some veer closer to random sandbox, and some veer, but it's a sandbox somewhere. So something's been created for the sake of it. Anyway, we'll read a few more. Mostly they are uh, entries that mimic spells or abilities of characters or classes or races slash species. Clairvoyance, color spray, cure light wounds, darkness, detect evil, invisibility, magic, ESP, featherfall, find traps, fly when held or ordered, that is, when holding the item. It's the axe of the dwarf lords, and we know how Thor can use his hammer to fly or pseudo fly. So something along the order of that. Hypnotic pattern, infravision, invisibility, no alignment, levitate, light, mind blank. And a lot of these have 3 times a day, 1 times a day, 7 times a week as their number of uses for that particular ability. So when you're picking 6 things here, in this case, you might be picking 1, 3, or 7 for the first thing, so to speak. So don't forget, you put that much power into a thing, uh, expect it to get used. Um, create situations that allow them to use these various powers. Create encounters that will still challenge them. You don't want them getting this artifact and then having one guy just walk through everything while everyone else is struggling either. So be careful about that. Make sure some of these abilities are effectively helping the entire group and not just the person with the relic or artifact, so that it doesn't become too skewed toward that one character or player. That's good advice. Mind blank, obscurement. I skipped levitate, no alignment, invisibility, infravision. Pass without trace. There's a number of good things here. Possessor immune to disease, immune to fear, immune to gas of any type. Possessor need neither eat nor drink for up to 1 week, so there's a sort of sustenance thing going on there. Protection +2 when held or worn. Remove fear by touch, so the possessor of the item has the ability to quell fear in others, but it's by touch. Little pat on the head, perhaps. A strong hand on the shoulder. Fear not, my friend. Sanctuary when held or worn. Shield. Speak with animals. Speak with dead. Speak with plants. Tongues when held or worn and commanded. Ultravision when held or worn. Ventriloquism. Water breathing. Water walking. Wearer immune to charm and hold spells. Immune to magic missiles. Web. Wizard lock. Rite. Zombie animation. 1 time per week. That one's a little thinner than most of the others, but that was the minor benign powers. The major benign powers, if you thought we were already giving away the house there. Animal summoning 2 or 3. Again, a lot of these, they just spells on a stick, so to speak. Animate object upon command, +2 to armor class of possessor, or AC 0, whichever is better. That's an interesting caveat. Cause serious wounds, charm monster, charm person. Good morning. Thanks for stepping in, Mike. Cone of Cold, 9 to 12 dice. It's a massive cold spell. Now I'm sure they're talking 6-siders there, not 20-siders, but you could ramp it up if they're going to the land of the fire giants. Confusion, cure blindness, cure disease, dimension door, disintegrate, dispel illusion, dispel magic, double movement, emotion, exercise, that is to cast demons out of someone if someone is possessed. Fear by touch or gaze rather than remove. Fireball, 9 to 12 dice. That's 2 times a day, by the way, which is pretty good extra. Fire shield. Giant strength, haste, heal, hold animal, hold person, hold monster. Lightning bolt. Minor globe of invulnerability, paralyzation. Pass wall, phantasmal killer, polymorph, self. Regenerate 2 hit points per turn, but not if killed, it says. Remove curse by touch. Slow 1 time a day. Speak with monster, stone to flesh, suggestion, telekinesis. They give a weight range, but you can adjust that. Teleport with no error. Transmute rock to mud, true seeing, turn wood. Wall of fire, wall of ice, wall of thorns. Weapon damage is +2 hit points. Wind walk, wizard eye, word of recall, x-ray vision. Looks like there's an extra one on that, 51, because it goes all the way to YY. In any event, there you are. All the benign stuff, minor and major. I think it's worth going through the rest of the effects. We can get into individual items starting next week. I think we're going to use up our time finishing these off if we can. Minor malevolent effects. Now this gets a little more interesting because most of it isn't just flat out giving someone a spell who didn't usually have spells, or giving somebody an ability that other characters possess that this one did not. And the minor ones are kind of strange. A is acne on the possessor's face. Blindness for 1 to 4 rounds when first used against an enemy. So you swing that axe and blind yourself for a few rounds. Body odor noticeable at 10-foot distance. Deafness for 1 to 4 turns when first used against an enemy. Gems or jewelry Found never increase in value. That's interesting. Holy water within 10 feet of item becomes polluted. Lose 1 to 4 points of charisma for 1 to 4 day when major power used. So that's contingent on you using the actual power within the artifact or relic. Possessor loses interest in sex. Well, there you go. Now we're in the 70s. Possessor has satyriasis. Now, I am assuming, since the root is satyr, it is the opposite of that previous ability. Gains interest or has no interest in anything but sex. Possessor's hair turns white. Saving throws versus magic are at -1. Versus poison at -2. Sense of smell loss for 2 to 8 hours when first used against an enemy. Small fires, torches, and such extinguished when major power used. So maybe there's like a blast effect. Just pushes out wind and extinguishes small fires. Small items of wood rot from Possessor's touch. Any item up to normal sized door, 1 to 7 days time. So that's how long it takes. So it doesn't just instantly turn a heavy oaken door to dust. But it rots it away. So good luck living in a place with shutters and anything made of wood. It's just going to rot around you, right? Touch of Possessor kills green plants. User causes, I see that last one. It seems like many people, myself included, who have no green thumbs, no green thumb on clover. We have that ability already. User causes hostility towards himself in all mammals within 60 feet. User must eat and drink 6 times the normal amount due to the item's drain upon him or her. User's sex changes, gender they're talking about here, and that doesn't specifically say how many genders there are, so that one stood the test of time. Wart appears on Possessor's nose. Weight gain 10 to 40 pounds. Weight loss 5 to 30 pounds. Yearning for an item forces Possessor to never be away from it for more than 1 day, if at all possible. So there you go. You're precious. Now notice this only goes up to X. We're not even getting into double letters. Yelling becomes necessary to invoke spells with verbal commands. So you got to use your outside voice when you're casting, apparently. Notes regarding minor malevolent effects. These powers should be inflicted upon the possessor of the item after he or she has had the artifact or relic for a period of time, 1 to 4 weeks, or after using major powers of the item. That is to say, let them grow accustomed to this artifact or relic and its usefulness. You don't want somebody saying, oh, well, I just, pick it up, suddenly my hair starts falling out. No, no, no. This is not good. I don't want it. Let them see the usefulness of it for a little while at least, except in the case of something that pops off when a major ability kicks. Let them get a feel for it and let them become reliant, dependent upon the items so that it's a little tougher to just toss away because of some minor effect. Now, talk about major malevolent effects. Body rot is 10% cumulative likely whenever a primary power is used and part of the body is lost permanently. Toe, a pinky, an ear, something kind of on the fringes of necessary. Sarah's in the house. Those are mostly diabolical, but some are weird. It's very true. It's about to get more weird as we continue with the major malevolent effects. Capricious alignment change each time a primary power is used. It does get worse. Gaius, Quest, or I guess Gesh is the proper pronounce. We've always said Gaius, but I've heard many different pronunciations. But I looked that up once, and Gesh / Quest, placed upon the possessor. You will go find the world's most useful object. Might be a matter of interpretation. Come back with a shoehorn or a thermos. You might be in the right area. Letter D. Item contains the life force of another person. And after a set number of uses, the possessor's life force is drawn into it and the former soul released. So you switch places with whoever was trapped in the item before, and then they get to take over your body and your life. Now, knowing that it happened to them and they were sucked into the item, it's quite possible that now that they're out, first of all, they're going to get rid of the item so they don't get sucked back in. But let's also realize that they're not going to want anybody else to know. So they're not going to want the item be given to another party member, because then the person whose body they just took over will wind up in their friend's body. And they're not going to let that stand, so they're going to try to get out, and they're going to try to get everybody switched back around. And, once you get into 3 or 4 different switcheroos, there's going to be some tricks to it, because don't forget, you're going to have to reuse that item a certain number of times for that switch to take effect. And, I'm looking at the clock on the wall. I'm going to save the rest of the major malevolent effects, and we'll get into the primary power and the side effects in a future time. Maybe in the next one. Maybe we can get all of this in, because they're shorter lists. So we should be able to do all that. And then part 4, probably, and part 5, maybe part 6, we'll get into individual items. And we'll probably take a few tangential trips into my memory of times when I put artifacts or relics, not just straight out magic items, which I've created a few of those to add to campaigns, but things that were all powerful and sort of hanging over the campaign in a way that required the attention of all and definitely became part of the story. There's some to do with wish fulfillment gone wrong, other big things like that people get a hold of, that maybe at first they don't realize how powerful something is, or how it has affected the campaign or the setting or the characters, until a little further along, and then how easy is it to reverse those effects at that point. Sometimes it can be tricky. In any event, we're right about there, so I am going to say thanks to everybody for popping in the chat and chiming in. If you did so, I do appreciate it very much. I will also say thanks to everybody who catches us a little later. If you want to join us, the show streams on Twitch live each Monday at 10 a.m. Central, and is then archived on YouTube. You can catch it on Twitch if you catch it before too many weeks go by, because they cull older episodes. which is part of also why I archive it on YouTube. And if you catch it over there or anywhere, please do subscribe to the channel. And please do give thumbs ups to the videos you watch and enjoy on YouTube. Click the little bell to make sure you're notified when new episodes are uploaded. All of that very much appreciated. I will also say, I hope you've enjoyed us. Thank very much for watching the OK Grognard Show. That's right, it is the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye-bye.